The spirit of America says it's not where you're born, but it's the attitude and the love you bring to life that makes you welcome where you go, and that's what refugee narrative is all about.
You know, our nation's forefathers and framers were refugees. America was built and has proffered on the inflow of wisdom, work ethic, passion, integrity, and the dreams of refugees.
They don't want benefits, they don't want things to be given them, they just want an opportunity to be able to become part of the community. Unfortunately, refugees and migration has become a weapon of war, and so we have more and more victims of conflict who would like nothing more to stay where they are, but they can't go home and they can't stay home, so they have to come somewhere else.
Well, the most important thing that we're looking at is getting a public narrative out there that refugees are Americans, that we are all America, and that the strength of this country is really built around how we integrate refugees. And that's historical. You can pick any period of time in American history.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened.
I came to this country as an immigrant. It was my choice to come to this country, but even though it was my choice, it was very difficult to get adjusted, and I cannot imagine what kind of difficulties they're having. So I'm happy to be part of this program.
You could not be shy about telling to others exactly who helped you. You know, it's because of this community. Haitians, immigrants or refugee, Hispanic immigrants or refugee, you know, all the people who are already here in this country, they all stand behind me. It's because of the generosity that I am who I am.
Celebrate World Refugee Day events in order to draw the public's attention to the millions of refugees worldwide who have been forced to flee their homelands due to war, conflict, persecution, and that make immeasurable contributions to the nations which they go to. And I'm reminded of the plight of Venezuela. How many Venezuelans in the room today? God bless all of you. The annual commemoration is marked by the variety of events in more than 100 nations involving government officials, humanitarian workers, celebrities, civilians, and many others. It is indeed a great day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Ileana Bustelo, the Deputy Director for the Office of Refugee Services, who will say a few words and introduce our first session and its participants. We will also view a Dr. Padron video shortly. Ileana?
Good morning, thank you. Thank you all, as Mr. Mendieta said, for being here today with us, our partners, Miami-Dade College, the Refugee Task Force, but most importantly, thank you, refugees, for coming today and sharing your story. I am not a refugee, but I am the child of a refugee, so I've been through similar processes as many as you have. So I want to take the opportunity to share with you and introduce a number of individuals one by one so they can come up here for a moment and give us their sentiment. And these individuals make Miami-Dade County their new home. They're going to share with us a little bit about the experiences they had and how they're contributing to our community right now. And first up, we're going to have a video by Dr. Padron. So if everyone will look at the monitors.
Miami-Dade College is an incubator of inclusion. This is a very diverse institution. We have students from 190 different countries, 90 different languages represented in the student body. We graduate, for example, more African Americans and more Hispanics than any other college or university in the country. I'm Eduardo Padron, president of Miami-Dade College, the largest and most diverse institution of higher learning in America. I'm an American by choice. I came here as a young teenage refugee with a younger brother in the 60s. And I was fortunate to have people here who welcomed me and provided me opportunities to really study, grow, and work, and become an American. All you have to see is who is really leading the way in this community in every single industry. And these are people, immigrants who came here, who worked hard, who put a lot of effort into becoming technicians, professionals, and who today are giving more than their fair share back to make sure others have the same opportunity.
My students, they teach me. I would be lying if I say no. I don't learn. I learn on a daily basis from them. Whether they're peeling something or they're making a dish, there's always something I can learn from them because they do have different backgrounds. So they're South American, they're European, and they bring something to the table. My name is Victor Santos. I'm from Brazil, born and raised, and I'm the executive chef at Tuyo Restaurant and also one of the instructors for the bistro at Tuyo. My particular class is full of immigrants, people who were not necessarily born here. And if we bring down to our menu, which is a very small sample size, a lot of the items on the menu are suggestions and items that they came up with. Our president is an immigrant, and he is the living picture of what an immigrant can bring to a community. Look how much he has done throughout the years. Look around us.
My name is Alec Andres. I am a student here at MCI in my last semester. I am born and raised here in Miami, but my family is of Cuban background. All the specials here at Tuyo are created by the students, and everybody's put a little bit of themselves into their plate. I do know the struggles that my family went through to come here. And it's never easy. You can't give up hope. You have to, if you really want to live here, I think you have to fight. You know, that's what America's all about.
My name is Bernardo Espinel. I am a chef instructor here at Miami Culinary Institute, and I am from Colombia, and I was born in Bogota. We're very aware, you know, to make the students feel welcome. You know, sometimes some of them, it's their first time out of their country, immigrants, and, you know, our diverse culture, you know, does make this country unique, and you know, it makes it great.
My name is Elena Amador. I'm from Ecuador. I was born and raised there. There's where I've lived and did my first degree, my career and everything. When I got here, like in the international department, they helped me a lot, like going through papers and things and going back and forth, looking for documents that I needed in Ecuador and then coming back and then, you know, certifications and things. At the end of the day, they like go hand by hand with the student. Like at that point, I stopped feeling like that uncertainty because someone was helping. So that was the first thing that I opened my eyes that this was the correct place where to go and apply.
My name is Jose Casals. I'm from Ponce, Puerto Rico, and I'm the associate professor at Miami-Dade College, Miami Culinary Institute. Becoming a chef is really learning about cuisines from all over the world. So it will never be the same if you have everybody with the same palate, with the same mentality in one class, as when you have this melting pot that I have, where when we are in discussions of, let's say, cuisine of Mexico, there's that Mexican student that can actually help you and say, no, this is how we do it there, and this is the reason why it's there, and you can find the exact flavor because they understand that, they lived that their whole life.
We have the honor as Miami-Dade College being an institution that has welcomed everyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, immigrant status, you name it. And that's what has made Miami-Dade College one of the most recognized institutions in this entire nation.
Now I'd like to welcome our first invited guest up to the stage, Mr. Nurul Bari Afghanamal. who arrived in the United States about a year ago, and he's going to share a little bit about his story and how he's contributed in his process. Thank you.
No one leaves home until it is the mouth of a shark. Thank you, MDC, for standing with refugees and not forgetting this vulnerable part of our shared world. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a glimpse of what my country and its refugees have been passing through during the last few decades. We are living in a world where 65 million people are forcibly displaced from their homes. Nearly 34,000 additional people are displaced every single day. I'm coming from a country that has been the world's top refugee producer for 32 years, prior to the upsurge of the Syrian violence and the violence in Iraq. My country, Afghanistan, is now the second on the list of the countries producing most refugees. More than 2.6 billion of my fellow countrymen are seeking refuge in other countries across the world. This forms 10% of the entire population of my homeland. Friends, remember, no one leaves home until it is the mouth of a shark. But Afghanistan has been worse than the mouth of a shark for the last few decades. Violence has been the top reason why so many Afghans have chosen to flee from their country. Due to the ongoing terrorist activities and violent extremism, a large number of my countrymen sell their belongings and borrow money to pay human smugglers to be transported illegally into Europe and other countries. Those who can't afford to pay for an entire family buy passage for only youngsters, usually skilled and educated sons, in the hope that they might obtain a brighter future or at least get rid of the insurgents' eyes. But I know families who have sold out all their belongings, including their shelters, to send their beloved sons outside the country, not knowing that they are sending them out of the world. Because most of illegal immigrants are either eaten by sharks or shot dead by border police. But this also has not been risky enough to stop my countrymen from fleeing their country. Dear audience, words cannot express the thankfulness that I feel from the American people and the US government. Human Rights Watch and other watchdog organizations have accused our neighbor countries of severe maltreatment of Afghans, including sudden deportation, physical abuse at the hands of security forces, limited job opportunities outside the unskilled labor, and restricted access to education, health, and other basic services. Furthermore, Human Rights Watch reported last year that Iran has been forcing thousands of Afghan refugees to fight in pro-government armed groups in neighboring Syria. On the other hand, Pakistan has been using Afghan refugees to fight back against Afghan government and to destabilize Afghanistan and the region. Respected participants, Afghan refugees in their neighboring countries are dreaming peace in their country, or at least to be treated as humans in their neighboring host countries. But only a few lucky persons like me make it to the United States, where they can enjoy all human rights regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, sex, and other factors. Afghanistan rose from ashes to prosperity and a democratic nation, with the billions of funds channeled by international community led by the United States. And I'm thankful to the US government and people for showing extensive generosity and kindness towards refugees, including Afghans. Let me also take the opportunity to thank Naila Abdul Latif, my case manager, and Lutheran Services of Florida for their tireless efforts in my resettlement process. And thank you all for putting this together. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome to the stage Ms. Liana Perdomo. She's a refugee from Cuba and a former SAVES student, and she's currently working as a public adjuster.
I was welcomed here in 2003. I came from Cuba when I was 18 years old. And in 2004, I came to the English Center where the program called SAVE helped me. And I didn't speak any English at all at that time. I learned English at the English Center. I came to Miami-Dade College and I graduated here. I got an AA. And then after that, I transferred all my credits to FIU. I'm a currently civil engineering student. I'm proud to be American, by the way. And that's what I'm saying. Welcome to this country, because this is the country where you have all opportunities and we are here to help. And we have programs like SAVE that, will make your life be easier. It's just a matter of what you want or where you're going. And thank you all for being here today, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. And now we have Dr. Yvens Fivier, and he's a refugee from Haiti, and he's basically been overseeing the Miami-Dade County Public Schools VIP internship program for the North Miami Senior High School since 2010, and he'll share a little bit about his story.
I would say it again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say, good morning, families and friends. I felt really like I'm in a real family settings, my other family. I'm pretty sure that most of us in this room, we share at least one common denominator. Either you are a refugee or immigrants, or come from refugee or immigrants' parents, or you are advocates for refugee or immigrants. I can tell you right now, that's not a bad thing. This is a wonderful thing indeed. Sometimes thinking that my story of a refugee is not only my story, it is the story of every individual who led me to who I am today. Because without my community, without other immigrants and refugees who were here before me, I would not be able to make it alone. Migrated to the US because of political persecution. I was twice shot in one day. There's no other better place that will open, with an open arm like the United States to welcome you and to come and really be the person that I am today. When I came here, I did not speak the language. I did not know anybody. If you speak Creole in this room, I said, I was doomed, but I was wrong. After a few months in this country, I've learned that I was more than fortunate. Seeing, the way that this community, they helped me to be the person that I am. This here in the US was the first place that I've heard from the first time, you do not only have the right to be educated, but you have the duty to be educated. And Mr. President always said, it is okay if you need help to ask for help from your brothers and sisters. But remember, when you make it to Zion, you have the duty and the obligation to pay it forward. And because of this, I lived my entire life and saying this. When I was in my country, all I ever wanted was to be part of the political and civil process, helping others. But I have the opportunity to do it here. Today I could say that, I'm a yesterday refugee, a today American citizen. I could not be any prouder, And I know that most of you in this room think the same way. Today I could say that I'm as American that American can be. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. And our last invited guest to share their story with us is an individual who is a former refugee from Haiti. And I'd like to welcome and bring up to the stage Dr. Smith Joseph, the Honorable Mayor of North Miami, who will be joining us this morning.
Good morning. Buenos dias. Guten Abend. Bonjour. That's the word. That's what I was looking for. Bonjour. Comment nous y? My name is Smith Joseph, first name Smith, last name Joseph, not to be confused with Joseph Smith the Mormon. 1979 was my year. Everybody had a year, right? For me, it was 1979. I remember it very vividly. It was a hot summer day in August. We were playing soccer barefooted in the streets of St. Louis. You know, it's a small town of Haiti. In the northwest part of Haiti, we were playing football. Kids, 15, 16 years old. Well, actually, I was 18 then. And I saw my uncle's wife came to me and with a little bag full of goods. Says, Smith, come here. I said, no, can't you see me playing with all my friends? And he said, no, you have to leave. I said, where am I going? You're going to Miami. I'm going to Miami. Like this? She says, yes. So there was a little boat waiting. Well, it's not even a dock. So the little boat took us. Needless to say, I was crying. I was in tears. All of my friends, I left the football game, soccer game. And they took us across to a little island called Tortuga Island. So we spent the evening there. And by night, there was a commercial boat that packs everybody in. And it was a three-day cruise. I was sick, I got fever, and threw up everything because that was my first time on water. So August 20th, 1979, we landed right there, not Miami, what do you call it? Not Miami River. And after immigration inspection, for about an hour or two, they let us out of the little, wherever they put us. And my mom had sent someone to pick us up because they already knew they left 3 days ago. 3 days later, they have to be there. My mom actually left Haiti before we did. She left because things were very tough. My father died when I was 10 years old, and he left my mom with 6 kids. So she tried to work, buy and go to Port-au-Prince, buy goods and go back and resell in my hometown, but that didn't work. So having said that, she had to leave. She left all 6 of us with our grandparents to care for us. And so one by one, she sent for us. I came here on a Sunday, and the following day, I was taken to Miami-Dade School, Miami-Dade Skill Center. That was an adult program because I was already 18, and I couldn't go to high school, to a regular high school. And I was going to do my last high school year in Haiti, so I didn't get to finish. I started crying. I cried for a good 6 months, thinking about all my friends, because in school I was always one of the top 3, either first, second, or third, and I keep thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm in a country, I don't know where I am. I know nothing. And what about 20 years from now, 40 years from now, I meet some of these guys. They're going to be doctors, engineers, and I'm going to be nothing. But there's always that voice from above that keeps telling me, Smith, just stay in school, stay in school, stay in school. So I toughed it out. I got the high school diploma from Dade Skill Center. Thereafter, I kept looking for things to do because I didn't know. I didn't have an uncle who was in the system or anybody. Somehow God, guided me to a technical school, and I went and did a laboratory technology program. I did that. I got licensed from Tallahassee, then no job. I went to North Dade Health Center, which was an annex of Jackson. The guy, he was a Jamaican gentleman, very nice. He said, Smith, I want to give you a job, but we just don't have a position for you. But he said, I'm going to give you the name of a guy at UM, the Melman Center, Dr. Paul Tochi. I will never forget him, and God bless his soul. I got to him, he could still barely speak English. And he neither didn't have a job for me. He said, well, I have like 6 employees, it's a biochemical lab, but he said, you know what, come back tomorrow anyway. I'll give you a job. But I failed to ask, how am I supposed to dress? So I got home, and this kind of story, I'm never ashamed to talk about them. And my stepfather, my stepfather used to work in a hotel. You know how Haitians, they bring all kinds of jobs from the hotel, the things that the Blanc threw away, and they bring them home. So he had a white pair of shoes. You know what kind of shoes it was? It was a golf shoes with cleats in it. I took the cleats out from the golf shoes because I thought I was supposed to go all in white. I go in a white pants and a white shirt. As if that wasn't enough, I got my white coat. Jesus Christ. So I went to work, and they started laughing. But they are good people, all Cubans. Then from there, I was working. I said, lab technician, that's not enough for me. That's not what I want to do. Ever since I was in Haiti, I wanted to be a doctor. So I started I would work from 8:30 to 5. And then 5 o'clock, I would zoom either to this campus here or to the North Campus on 119. So I was taking classes at 2 campuses while I'm working. And as if that wasn't enough, when I was getting ready to graduate to get my AS in pre-pharmacy, I didn't have enough money. And there was a buddy of mine, we were preparing to go away. We were trying to see if we can move to a 4-year college to prepare for med school. But in Miami-Dade North, you heard it in that video, when I was taking microbiology, he asked us what we want to do. I said, I want to do medicine. He said, man, you can't do medicine. You cannot speak English. You just got here to this country, and believe me, they will have no pity for you whatsoever. Actually, he crushed me that day, and I went and talked to the counselor and everything. We talked, and he said, oh, well, maybe you might consider something like pharmacy, for example. Do you like pharmacy? Do you like something? So we looked around for pharmacy schools. So I went to Florida A&M University and in Tallahassee, where I get my doctorate degree in pharmacy. Worked in pharmacy for about a year or so. I said, pharmacy is not what I want to do. I said, I'm going to go to med school. That's what I've always wanted to do. So I gathered my books, started studying, take Kaplan and everything, take my MCAT exam. Boom, I got accepted at Nova Southeastern University. 4 years of osteopathic medicine, and after that I went in to do my internal medicine training at Grady Memorial. So I doubled that guy who told me that I couldn't get into med school, I couldn't get a doctorate degree. Instead of one, I got 2. So, as a refugee, this land is the land where you can come with nothing and accomplish everything, but you have to put your mind to it. You have to have respect for yourself, because I have a lot of friends who came with me during the same time. Some of them are back in Haiti. So this is pretty much my journey in this country. And after I started practicing, I embarked into opening my private office in North Miami in 2001. I became so popular, all my patients started telling me problems about social problems. They come to my office telling me about their roofs, their yards, their problems that they had. I said, why? This is a medical office. Why are you guys telling me about all of these problems? And then they said, well, maybe you should be our mayor so you could fix all these problems that we have. I said, really? And then for months and months and months and months, I keep hearing the same thing. I said, well, let me dare it again. When the first time, he didn't make it, came back the second time. I won, and I got elected first time, second time, and only a couple of weeks ago, I got re-elected for a third term. my last term. So a refugee came to this country with nothing, got his degree in laboratory technology, doctor in pharmacy, doctor in medicine, became specialized in internal medicine. See, if this country didn't let me in, this is what they would have lost. Yeah. Thank you.
We're now going to have a panel discussion on refugee programs in the state of Florida, which will be moderated by Univision 23 news anchor Jorge Hernandez. But first, it is truly my honor and pleasure to introduce the president of Miami-Dade College's important Wolfson and Hialeah campuses, Dr. Joaquin Martinez, to say a few words. Dr. Martinez?
Good morning. Buenos días. On behalf of our college president, Dr. Eduardo Padron, and Miami-Dade College's Board of Trustees, I'm delighted to welcome you all to Miami-Dade College's Wolfson Campus right here in downtown Miami. I am Joaquin Martinez. I'm the campus president for both Wolfson and Hialeah campuses. Thank you very much for those inspiring words, Mr. Mayor. My year was 1980, and so I'm not trailing too far behind. But I arrived in the United States as an 8-year-old, 1 month shy of the known Mariel boat lift. And my family and I moved, my mother and I moved just one short block away from where all of the refugee camps and the tents were, which is now today one of the most treasured parts of our city, but was not at the time. And my journey has taken me to appreciate the tremendous courage and value and contributions of the refugees and so many of our neighbors who enrich our lives daily. And I stand here today to represent the aspirations of 165,000 of Miami's finest students and more than 2 million alumni who represent a rich and varied trajectory and bring contributions from all corners of the world. They come to Miami-Dade College to turn their dreams into a reality. I'm delighted to be joining you today for this panel where we'll have an opportunity to celebrate the richness of our community and to celebrate the trajectory of so many refugees who make our lives better every day. In Florida, as a leading state in the nation for the number of refugees who resettle in our areas, we are all witnesses and can attest to the richness that they make in enriching the fabric of Miami-Dade County. And at Miami-Dade College, this is a very central element of our mission. Any one of our students who crosses that street with a penny and a dream is aspiring to change their world and transform the lives and the lives of their families. The open access mission and the ability to serve those students is often referred to as a dream factory, and we are a proud dream factory where we support our students with helping to make the most of the educational opportunities that this institution offers. Enjoy the panel. Thank you for supporting the important work of Miami-Dade College, and I wish you a successful day. In appreciation of all that you do to celebrate today, I welcome you once again to Miami-Dade College and to MDC's Wolfson Campus. Thank you.
And now to moderate our second and final panel, I'd like to invite to the podium the talented Jorge Hernandez from Univision 23, who will moderate and introduce our participants. And I also must thank Univision and all its personnel and leadership for always being an amazing partner to Miami-Dade College on all the right and important causes, especially on education. Univision has certainly raised the bar of good corporate citizenship. Jorge, usted tiene la palabra. The floor is yours.
Hola, muy buenos días. ¿Dónde está mi gente de Venezuela? The way I feel right now about Venezuela reminds me of 27 years ago when I came to the most beautiful country in the world. We call it America. It was a Friday, June 17th, around 7 p.m. when I arrived at Miami International. My dream of Miami lasted 18 hours. Same day, the next day, I flew to Chicago where my brother and my two brothers, my older brother and my younger brother, have been in Chicago for already 3 years. So to me, it was a little easier to start the journey. But I flew to Chicago on a Saturday, and it was June 17th, and it was 48 degrees. My brothers told me that day, remember these words, wind chill factor, and then you'll see Chicago. I stayed in Chicago for 15 years. I took advantage of the city colleges of Chicago, Truman College and Harold Washington College. I graduated with a business degree. After becoming a TV producer, I left the country because my dreams were shattered. I felt hopeless. I felt unsafe. I felt there was nothing for me to do. And I came to America to become what I thought that I could become. And it did happen. I became an undocumented immigrant for 6 years until I got married. I got my green card. I've been a citizen for 15 years now and 22 years on television. I'm a news anchor. I made it in America, and anyone can make it in this country. But anyway, today we're here to discuss the current state of the policies of immigration and the refugee programs of the state of Florida and Miami-Dade County. We're gonna welcome our panel. Okay, we're gonna listen to all the participants. Okay, the first question, it goes for you, Patty. Okay. Good morning. What is the current state of the refugee services program now and in the very near future, especially in this harsh climate?
Well, it's an interesting time in which we're living, certainly. There are a lot of questions happening right now that are political questions and policy questions that frankly will be answered in Washington and Tallahassee and at the voting booths in the next couple of years. So it's really hard to know where we're going. I think there are some fundamental questions about the Refugee Convention and what that's going to look like in a few years. You know, we started in 1951 with refugees, and there was about 2 million refugees after World War II. And they thought that would all be fixed in a couple of years and we'd never have refugees again. But today we have 16 million. And so the question is, what are we going to do with those people who can't go home and many of them can't stay where they are? Here in Florida, I can tell you our refugee program is very, very strong. Over the last 2.5 years, over 130,000 refugees and other humanitarian immigrants have come to our state. And they're here, they're part of a very vibrant community, they're part of our economic engine, they're our neighbors, our employees, our students. They're just part of our community and continuing to help us grow and become better and richer and more vibrant and diverse.
Thank you, Patty. Christy, can you identify some of the challenges the refugee population may be facing in our community nowadays?
Yes, thank you all for having me here today. It's my pleasure to be here. I think that the biggest problem that we're having right now is the political climate and the discrimination and misconceptions that come from that. There's this idea that refugees are going to come and steal our jobs, steal our resources, radicalize people. And the evidence is not there. That's simply not true. The vast majority of refugees that come to this country contribute to the society and make it better. So I think that's a big problem that we're having now.
Reverend Mayor, we've seen the church taking action in helping many of the refugees, many of the people that have come from Cuba have taken refuge in churches, and they have received many services. What actions have the faith community taken statewide and nationally around refugee resettlement?
Well, the churches and the faith community have been leaders in refugee resettlement. I'm a Lutheran pastor. We got started Lutheran Immigration Refugees Services 70 years ago. You were talking about World War II. We had so many people from Europe who were displaced, had no place to live. So we got started saying to our Lutheran families and others back in Europe, come, we'll make a place for you. We welcomed the enemies that we had just fought. That's the beginning of the refugee program. And we forget that history, that the refugee resettlement program is about forgiveness, reconciliation, globally speaking, welcoming your enemy home. And so we have within the faith community a message of welcoming America. And we got word around Christmas time that there would be an effort in Tallahassee to try and cancel Florida's participation in the federal refugee resettlement program. And that was shocking to us. And so we helped to bring together the 9 resettlement service agencies in Florida, the immigrant rights groups in Florida, the churches in Florida, and together we did a coordinated campaign that sent somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 letters into the governor and to the leaders of the state legislature, along with a lot of witness and behind the scenes conversations. You have a great leadership down in here. Senator Flores was very effective behind the scenes in many ways. And so we brought people together and we said, no, Florida's a welcoming place. We always want to be a welcoming place, and we never want to tell another story about ourselves other than that.
Thank you, Reverend Mayor. Now, we've always heard that immigrants that come to America, the first thing they need to do is speak the language. I particularly agree on that. Patty, what are some of the legal what are some ways local communities can encourage integration of newcomers?
You know, it's interesting because refugees come here and I see they want one thing, and that's an opportunity. They don't want benefits, they don't want things to be given them, they just want an opportunity to be able to become part of the community. So I think the biggest thing that people can do is, number one, help people get jobs, help refugees have that initial opportunity so they can take care of their families, they can contribute and be a taxpayer and all those other things. The second thing, though, is we need to make sure that we are incorporating all of the elements of our communities. We did a survey recently in Orlando and looked at refugees who had come there over the last 5 years. And one of the things that's a little distressing that we found, although the economic news was really good about most of our families, was that only about 1/3 of all of the refugees had any friends who were Americans. And I think one of the troubling parts of that is if people are only talking to the people in their neighborhoods who may have come from the same country and people who speak their own language, they're not really getting together with the full community. And that's largely part of the Americans, the existing Americans are not reaching out. But we need to do more, I think, to bring people together, to find ways to bridge those gaps. You know, kids do it a lot better. 80% of the kids had friends who were not from their home country, but not as many of the adults. So one of the things I think we all need to think about is how we can individually, through our workplace, in our neighborhoods and everything, start bridging that gap and making friends and reaching out to the people who are our new neighbors.
I think I've heard that from the Haitian community and also from the Puerto Rican community in Miami-Dade County. They tend to live in the same neighborhoods, but they're breaking that. Most of them are moving to Broward County to integrate more with the different communities, which I think is great. It's giving more opportunity. Christy, what are some of the legal resources refugees in Miami-Dade County could use if needed?
There are several organizations, such as my own, St. Thomas University Human Rights Institute, Catholic Charities, Church World Service, that provide legal services to refugees. We're completely free of charge. We help refugees through the entire process, hopefully getting them to citizenship eventually. Additionally, we have a really dedicated staff of women and men that have been there for very, very long time. And I know I've been there for 14 years. We've helped thousands of people get their legal status and much, much more. I am an attorney / social worker. We help our clients through almost every imaginable situation.
Thank you. Now, recently, talking about Afghanistan and Syria, we've seen how tragic the situation is in some of those countries, especially the Syrians leaving the continent, going to Europe, dying in the process. And the Pope has said that well-developed countries need to take a bigger role in helping these refugees. Now, what interest does the faith community have in refugees and resettlement work?
So refugee resettlement work is a fundamental faith practice. Whether you're speaking of Christian, Jew, Muslim, or any other, understands that our relationship with however we name the divine is a relationship with something outside of us. And so that in knowing the other, we know ourselves. The scriptures speak about the definition of a people of good faith as being those who care for the widow, the orphan, and the immigrant. And so the way we care for and welcome those who have no other place in the world is the way we actually can know God in a real hands-on kind of way. That's what the tradition says. And so the fundamental interest that the faith community has in refugees is in actually deepening their own faith and getting to know their God even more profoundly by getting to know the other. So these are fundamental faith practices that go to the very core of how we understand our relationship with our Maker.
Patty, one of the biggest stereotypes, I would say, is that immigrants, refugees take up a lot of resources in America. They're bad for the economy. But what do we know about the long-term success of refugees in America?
Yeah, this is really, really interesting to me because I think there's a lot of people who think all of the refugees, stay in entry-level jobs. And obviously we've seen from doctors and musicians and everything today that we all know that isn't true. We see what's happening in our communities. But I think it's important that we get more and more facts out there. Go back to what we did in a survey in Orlando over 5 years. And we asked people, where are you today? Now, think about how the housing market is in the United States today, right? It's pretty expensive to buy a house. And a lot of people work for many, many years in order to save up enough money to buy a house. In Orlando, our survey of refugees who had been there for 5 years and less, people who arrived in 2011, 8% of them had bought a home by 2016. 8%, think about that. You have to have a lot of resources to buy a home in Orlando today, just like in Miami. We know that over 25% of the refugees coming into Orlando had a college degree when they got here. They were arriving with skills, with professions. 86% of them had a high school degree. We are not talking about people who come here with nothing to offer. And even if they're too young and don't come here with, professions and skills, and even if they've been living in a refugee camp and didn't have access to education and employment, they go to work and they contribute. We have a higher percentage of labor force participation by refugees than we do by American citizens. It's about 62% on average nationwide. Our labor force participation by refugees in Orlando was 82%. That's a significantly higher number of refugees who are working and contributing than even American citizens. So I think we need to dispel that myth right now. Refugees are here to contribute, and they're part of the vibrant economy that we have in Florida. And we know that places where immigrants are often the places with the most vibrant economies.
Thank you, Patty. Completely correct. Now, besides the story and the people you've met here today, Christy, can you name some of the most successful refugee cases you know?
We've had probably thousands of refugees go through our office, and I find that a big quality that most of them, all of them share is a gratitude to this country. We have had people that have started businesses, employed numerous people, become doctors, lawyers, bought homes, as Ms. Grogan said. There are innumerable cases of successes by refugees, and I think we need to get the word out there that there is nothing to fear from refugees, that they are good for this country, and that they are a positive force in our community.
Particularly the state of Florida. How do you think refugees benefit Florida, Reverend Mayor?
Well, the first thing they do is they bring down the crime rate. And that seems to be an issue that a lot of politicians want to politic on. So the crime rate actually goes down in a community that has refugees and immigrants present in it. And there are a lot of strong sociological reasons why that happens. But not only that, as Patty was saying, they contribute to the economy. Many refugees end up starting their own businesses, and they then become the employment factor in the local community. Not only that, they bring their stories. And, my whole life is about story. I mean, that's what I have. I tell stories, I listen to stories, I share stories. And the stories that refugees and immigrants bring are stories of hope and success in the face of adversity. Now, what more story do we need in the world today than that? Hope and success in the face of adversity. Dr. Smith Joseph just told a wonderful story about that in his own life. And so then the other thing that we really gain from them is community. So one of my favorite congregations is in St. Petersburg. They've been involved in resettlement for many years. After the Bosnian War, they resettled a Bosnian Muslim. He eventually became the director of property of facilities there. The congregation then resettled some a Liberian family with 3 young boys. And Liberians are often Lutherans. And so he adopted those boys, as it were, made certain they came to church and confirmation. That's Muslim now, making certain that the little Lutheran boys got to church, stayed out of trouble on the streets, finished their homework, and etc. And so refugees help build community. And so I really want to pick up on something Patty said earlier about the importance of contact. And so one of the most important things that the faith community can do along with refugees is increase the contact between one another. The current narratives that are out there create isolation, and that isolation is the enemy. What we need to do is learn and listen and love one another. And those things lead to integration that develops the kind of society we all want to have. We would not have a turkey point, or you wouldn't be playing with your cell phone if it weren't for refugees. Einstein, nuclear power, Steve Jobs, descended from a Syrian family. So refugees from the beginning of this nation were the engines of innovation, success, and community. The narrative that we're working with right now is to move that out of North Europe and understand it's global, and to realize that what it means to be an American is a set of ideals about respect and dignity and independence and community, and not about where you're born.
You just made me think of going back to World War II, about what happened to the Germans that were working in the making of bombs and other weapons of mass destruction, who ended up working here in America in our space program. So that's an amazing story. Now, to all of you, what can we do about the anti-immigrant and anti-refugee sentiment we hear?
Education. Teaching people that fear is never the answer. It's never a good place to come from. There's nothing to fear from our refugee community. There's nothing. People that come here only want to contribute and make this country better. I think employing refugees, educating others, not accepting negative anti-immigrant rhetoric is what we need to do to change things.
How do we go back to that sentiment of welcoming refugees, just like it's instilled in the Statue of Liberty?
So the challenge we have in our country right now is that a place like Miami gets it. It's in the room. But when I go to Bartow, you know where Bartow is? When I go to Fort Meade, you know where Fort Meade is? See, they don't get exposure. So they don't have the opportunity to go to an iftar and listen to the same hopes and dreams being said by an Iraqi or an Afghanistani or a Syrian that they have for their own children. And so I think one of our challenges is to move the cosmopolitan reality that we know in a place like Miami-Dade out into the rest of the country. We need to broadband refugee and immigrant reality across America. That's our real challenge. because the policymakers who get sent to Tallahassee and to Washington, changing them is very difficult. We have to change the base at the level, in the local coffee shops, in the other places. So we have to be very intentional about that. And one of the projects we're working on nationally is called the We Are All America campaign. And we're looking to 10 states to put organizers in those states just to try and deepen the message that we're talking about today into the heartland.
What do you think Canadians are doing different to America right now? They're welcoming refugees.
I've never seen ICE pick up a Canadian and deport him. There's a difference in the economy of scale, but Canada understands they cannot generate the population that they need to be a self-sustaining reality. If you actually run the numbers on America, the same thing's true for us. I mean, my Christian communion is shrinking for the simple reason that we read books at night. You following me? We don't have a lot of babies, right? And over time, if you don't welcome others, you just bury your grandparents and it's over with, right? And so that's actually happening across this country. We need a vital immigration policy, and we need an open heart for refugees. And they're not going away. It's going to continue. Climate change, climate refugees, the resource wars that will be caused by climate change are going to increase. They're not going to decrease. The spirit of America is the hope of the world. The spirit of America says it's not where you're born, but it's the attitude and the love you bring to life that makes you welcome where you go. And that's what refugee narrative is all about.
What can we do to help refugees, Patty?
Well, I very much agree with the idea that in communities where people know refugees and know a lot of immigrants, the argument is much more simple. People fear what they don't know. And you have to overcome fear in two different ways. One is in the head and one is in the heart. And in the head, I think we need to understand facts. And that's why I always bring statistics, and I really want people to understand what the reality is, because you have to intellectually engage people with facts. But people also are more motivated by what's in their heart. And if they meet people, if they know that family down the road with two little kids who came here from Syria, they get attached to them. Over the last 3 or 4 months, we've seen in papers all around the country, news stories about communities gathering to support an immigrant who's being deported under the new change in policies, because people care for and love their neighbors. They know the person that they've met and they've gotten to know, and they are interested and involved in their life. They may have feelings about a policy, but when you bring it down to the individual, their mind is often changed. And so what we need to make sure that we're doing is giving people the opportunity to know each other, getting the people the opportunity to know the families that we're talking about, understand their experiences, often horrific experiences that brought them to our country, so that they can understand that this person who's working in your grocery store or is your doctor came through this different world to get there. And then you'll find that they're very much convinced on different kinds of issues going forward.
Very well said. Thank you. Education is the key. We always fear what we don't know. Please, a big round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Jorge. That was fantastic. And again, thanks so much for attending and visiting Miami-Dade College. Have a great day.